Well, we all use money, don't we? We all use money. And money, you could say, dominates our society, in fact. It shapes our lives. And I studied economics at school and at university, and then another university. I never found the answers to certain questions that we never really think about too much, and I want to explore these questions with you now, today. What actually is money? Where does it come from? Who creates money? Now, you've heard a little bit about this, but we're going to go deeper into it now. I never found out the answers by studying economics. In fact, those questions weren't even asked. So then I trained as an accountant in the City of London. So I learned how to count money, but I never learned what money is. Then I became a banker, so I raised money for companies. But we never really questioned where that money had come from in the first place. Now, I became disillusioned with the banking system, maybe a feeling that some of you share. And now I'm an economist that looks into money and banking. And I'm going to argue today that the essence of money, in fact, is that it is a social relationship. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, to begin to illustrate it, I want to tell you a story, a true story from London a couple of years ago, May 2010. There's been a general election, so we've got a new government. And that means we have a new Chief Secretary to the Treasury. He's the Deputy Finance Minister in the UK. He comes into his office on the first day in his job, and he finds a note left for him by the previous Chief Secretary to the Treasury. That's nice. So he picks up the note and reads it. Dear Chief Secretary, I'm afraid there is no money left. Good luck, kind regards. Well, this is a strange statement, isn't it? I mean, it's strange in a number of ways. It's strange because how can a country run out of money? The government then was spending £700 billion a year. That seems like quite a lot of money to me. But no, the reason why I think that's strange is because the best way to think about money, I would say to you, is as a way of exchanging value. It is a way, a mechanism for matching the incredible creativity that humanity has with our unmet needs and aspirations. How can you run out of that? Well, that note from the Chief Secretary, that shows a sort of powerful misconception of money, I think, that really has taken root. It's a conception that's a bit like this. That money is like gold locked in a vault. Now, of course, money is used to store value. This is a way that money is used. But this limits our thinking. This creates boundaries because this actually conflicts with using money to exchange value. It puts boundaries around our ability to use money to connect those spare resources and creativity with those unmet needs. But history tells us that the essence of money actually is in the exchange of value. The historian Niall Ferguson once said, "Money is not metal. Money is trust inscribed." And so I can illustrate that. You'll probably see quite a few of these today. So this one is quite interesting. This is a £20 note, and it has something quite curious written on it. It says, "I promise to pay the bearer, on demand, the sum of £20 from the Bank of England." So if I go to the Bank of England and I turn up and I say, "Okay, I've come to collect my £20 now," what are they going to give me? They'll give me another one of these. So where's the £20? Where's the money? Okay? Well, the money is the promise. That promise is the money. Money is a social relationship. Now, this is a very empowering thought, that money is a social relationship, because it means that money should be a mechanism that helps society meet its goals. And we have some major challenges. In this century, the 21st century, we have to find a way to help 9 billion people live together in peace and prosperity, fairly and equitably, within our ecological means. And I don't think our current system of money is up to the job. We need to rethink money. We need new kinds of money. So, before I explain why the new money is what we need to just cover this point, answer this question. One of these questions I mentioned, where does money come from? Well, people generally tend to think it's maybe from the central bank or the government, but actually in modern societies, maybe 97% of the money we have is created by private banks. You've already heard this. I'm going to demonstrate to you how this works, because people find this quite surprising. Why would we leave the creation of money in the hands of private banks? Well, this is how it works. And actually, by the way, in case you don't believe me, here's a quote from the governor of the Bank of England, who I hope understands how money works. He said, "When banks extend loans to their customers, they create money by crediting the customer's account." How can that possibly work? Works a bit like this. Imagine that I'm a bank. Here I am. I'd like to give you a loan. You sign a loan agreement. You promise to repay me the loan, 10,000 euros. That's great. So I've now got an asset. The customer has given me an IOU. What's the customer going to get in return? So if I'm the bank, do I take 10,000 euros from another customer's account, out of his account, and give it to this? No. No, nobody loses 10,000 pounds. So does the central bank give me 10,000 euros? No, the central bank doesn't create that money. I simply create it myself as the bank. And there it is, personal loan, bank statement. I've just credited it to your account. I've created that money. This is another IOU. This is an IOU from the bank to the customer. But this is a very special kind of IOU. This is money. This is accepted as money. Now, you might say, well, okay, that's the system. Does that matter? Well, it does. It does, because this system has shown itself to be quite unstable. Because this is a system where banks are driven primarily by profit. Yes, there are ethical banks. There are banks that do things differently. But the system, and this isn't to blame bankers, by the way, the system is driven by short-term profit. And that means that the money that's created is blind to social and ecological needs. It can leave whole regions and communities behind. The system creates too much money during booms, too little money during a crash. The system is inherently unstable. And so we can get booms. We get property booms. We even get tulip booms occasionally. We can have too much money created for the wrong things. Is this really the sort of best system that we can have? Well, no. And, this isn't the way that the system has always been. Here's some examples of ways in which money was created without using bank debt money. There's the engravings on this cuneiform block from ancient Mesopotamia show that the recording of credit, of loans, of relationships was made by palaces and temples way before metal coins or banks. And the wooden sticks were used in Europe. These are called tally sticks. The government used them to buy goods and services. The people used them as money. They circulated, and then the people paid them back to the government as taxes. Money created without debt, without interest, without inflation, without banking crashes. It was used in England as late as the 19th century, and in the 20th century, governments were still issuing their own notes. This one's called a Bradbury Bill, not by a bank, issued debt-free by the government to finance expenditure. So, am I arguing to you that we should take the power of creation of money away from banks and give it back to the government? Well, this has been argued, and in fact, in the 1930s in America, most economics professors in the United States suggested that this should be the case. But there's a couple of problems. I'm not sure that people these days trust governments much more than they trust banks. And there's another problem. We can't wait. We can't wait for governments, and we can't wait for the banking system to change itself. But fortunately, there's still another way to create money. You're going to see lots of these notes today. People can create money because money is a social relationship. So wherever there are unmet needs, wherever there are spare resources, wherever we can use our creativity to put these two things together, we can find new ways of exchanging value. We can find new ways of creating money because money is a social relationship. And this is happening not just in history. This is happening all around the world right now. We're going to hear lots of stories later about this, from Greece to Germany, Brazil to Argentina, America to Australia. Wherever there are unmet needs and wherever there are spare resources, people are finding a way to put these two things together. And so we have money that's based on time. money based on hours worked, money based on mutual credit between businesses, money that is based on just a local area to revive an economy. We have money that can meet social needs, money that can meet environmental needs, money that can also stimulate the economy. Lots of different kinds of money. And to illustrate how this can happen, there's a couple of stories that I want to share. One from the Great Depression in the US, it's already been mentioned. Times were very hard during the Great Depression. 1 in 4 of the workforce were unemployed. People were going hungry, people were homeless. The system of bank debt money creation had gone spectacularly wrong in 1929 with the Wall Street crash. So perhaps it's not surprising that by 1933, there were 400 towns across America who had issued their own money. And this attracted the attention and support of the most prominent American economist of the time, Irving Fisher. Thought this was a very good thing. Perhaps a smaller story from the island of Guernsey in 1815. They had similar problems. They had an economy, they had infrastructure that was crumbling, and they had trade had fallen away. But the government was heavily indebted. It could barely cover the interest payments on the government's debt of the island. The market house needed to be rebuilt to re-encourage the trade. So what could they do? They couldn't borrow any more money. But the governor said, well, have we got timber? Have we got stone? Yes, we've got plenty on the island. Do we have carpenters? Do we have stonemasons? Yes, they're all unemployed. They've got no work. Well, how can we not put these two things together? Let's issue our own money against ourselves, rebuild the marketplace. And the trade that was generated repaid all the money, but it was issued by the people themselves against themselves. And we can do this. So do any of these things sound familiar, I wonder? From these two examples, we've got banking crashes, we've got credit crunches, we've got infrastructure, we have a huge need to invest, we've got people unemployed, we've got people who are hungry even. Do any of these problems sound familiar? I think they do. And so the question is, how can we start to put these people to work? How can we start to get the spare resources that exist to start to do the jobs that need to get done? Because the money debt system that we have, or money created by banks, it might have been very useful at certain points in time, but right now, it's not getting the job done. We need to rethink the way that we talk about money. We need to liberate ourselves, I would say, from the bank vault. We need to move from a money system and banking system that's dominated only by very large banks, by global banks. Okay, we need some of those, but what we really need is we need grassroots innovation from the bottom. We need financial innovation amongst communities. We need also smaller banks that can do different jobs. We need different kinds of money to suit different kinds of circumstances. Because what we found through history is that when the system is only dominated by this bank debt money, what happens is the money is accumulated more and more amongst the wealthy, and the poor accumulate only more and more debts. And when this happens, you will always get a crash. So how do we liberate ourselves from this? Well, you're going to hear lots of examples later today about the way that people are beginning to do this. But the key is to understand, is to re-establish our idea of what money is. Because money is not metal. Money is trust inscribed. Money is a social relationship, and that means that we can control money. We mustn't let money control us. And so this is a very good piece of news, because what it means is that as long as we have creativity in our communities, as long as we have trust within our communities, then we can never, ever run out of money. Thanks.